In this video, I wanted to do a quick introduction to complex numbers. Okay. Um, Now, in the past, you may have been told that you cannot take the square root of a negative number. And that's kind of true. That's true in the sense that if you want to stay in the real numbers, there is no real number that will give you the square root of a negative number. So to see this, let's consider the equation um, x squared equals -1. And we want to figure out when this is true. To solve this, we would just take the square root of each side, and then we would get x is equal to the square root of -1. But that doesn't make any sense normally. So to get around this, we sort of create a new system of numbers called the complex numbers. And we say that the square root of -1 is equal to the letter I. Okay, so we define I to be the square root of -1. Okay, and this also implies that I squared is equal to -1. Okay, numbers that are written with I are called complex numbers. Okay, so now we can define square roots of negative numbers if we're willing to use complex numbers. Okay, and so how we would do this is, let's say we want to find, just for example, if we want to rewrite the square root of -a, where a is some real number, okay, the square root of -a, we would just write this as I times the square root of a. Okay, um, you can think of this as follows. You can really think of this as the square root of -a is equal to the square root of -1 times the square root of a, which is just I times the square root of a. Okay, so that's sort of where that comes from. So let's do a couple of simple examples here. Let's say we have the square root of -100. Okay, we can rewrite this as I times the square root of 100. Okay, and we know that the square root of 100 is 10, so we have I times 10. Typically with complex numbers, we write the I after the number, okay? So we typically would write this as 10I, okay? I times 10 is not technically wrong, it's just usually a formality that we would write this as 10I rather than I times 10, okay? Um, so taking a look at the next example, we have the square root of -25. Okay, the square root of -25. This is the same thing as I times the square root of 25. And we know the square root of 25 is 5. So this is really I times 5. But again, we like to write this as 5I rather than I times 5. Same idea again here. This could be written as I times the square root of 9. And we know that the square root of 9 is just 3. So I times 3, or just 3I. It's really quite simple. But that's sort of where this comes from. Okay.